Hey everyone, welcome back to Genai Tech News. And we are kicking things off with some big space drama. SpaceX was on the verge of launching its brand new Starship V3 rocket this week, the most powerful version yet, but the mission got scrubbed literally moments before liftoff. According to TechCrunch, the rocket had already been fully fueled, the countdown was ticking, and then, nothing. A ground system issue forced the team to call it off at the last second. Ars Technica has more details on what went wrong, reporting that engineers traced the problem to ground support equipment rather than the rocket itself, which is actually somewhat reassuring for the vehicle's debut. The good news? Both outlets are reporting that SpaceX could be ready to try again as soon as Friday evening. Starship V3 is a major step up from previous versions, and the pressure is on to get this thing off the ground, especially with the SpaceX IPO now firmly in the spotlight. We'll be watching that launch window very closely. Now let's talk about the bigger picture for SpaceX, because the company's IPO filing is raising some serious eyebrows. TechCrunch has done a deep dive into what this public offering actually means for ordinary investors, and the answer is not much compared to Elon Musk. According to TechCrunch's reporting, Musk is set to hold more than 50% of the voting power in the publicly traded SpaceX, a level of control that reporters are describing as, quote, monarchical, going far beyond what even other high-profile tech founders typically hold when their companies go public. And it's not just Musk benefiting. A separate TechCrunch investigation found that the other top shareholders in SpaceX all have deep, long-standing personal and professional ties to Musk himself. So while the IPO will generate enormous wealth, the vast majority of that windfall flows directly to Elon and his inner circle. It's a fascinating look at how power gets structured when one of the world's most valuable private companies finally opens its doors to the public on very specific terms. All right, switching gears. And honestly, this story has been a wild ride for Waymo this week. The self-driving robotaxi company is dealing with not one, but two major operational headaches at the same time. First, TechCrunch is reporting that Waymo has now suspended service in 4 cities, including Atlanta and San Antonio, after multiple vehicles were caught driving straight into flooded roads. Yes, you heard that right. The autonomous cars kept heading into floodwater even when conditions were clearly dangerous, and Waymo had to pull the plug on service while it figures out how to better detect and avoid those situations. But that's not all. A separate TechCrunch report reveals that Waymo has also halted freeway rides after its vehicles struggled to navigate construction zones safely. So between the floods and the construction chaos, Waymo is having a genuinely tough week. The company says it's actively working on solutions for both issues, but this is exactly the kind of real-world scenario that reminds us just how challenging it is to deploy autonomous vehicles at scale. Robotaxis are impressive technology, until the road starts throwing curveballs. Now for some gadget news that genuinely caught my attention. Anker has officially launched its new Soundcore Liberty 5 Pro earbuds, and they come packed with something brand new. As The Verge is reporting, these are the first earbuds to feature Anker's own custom, thus AI audio chip, which the company announced last month. The chip uses that AI processing power to dramatically boost noise reduction and, here's the part that's turning heads, to make your voice sound remarkably clear during phone calls, even in loud environments. The Verge's review is particularly glowing, with the reviewers saying these earbuds deliver the best call quality they've ever heard from wireless earbuds. Full stop. That's a bold claim. Soundcore has traditionally played in the budget to mid-range space, but with the Liberty 5 Pro and the top-tier Liberty 5 Pro Max, Anker is clearly gunning for the premium market dominated by the likes of Sony and Apple. If the Thus chip delivers on its promises, this could be a serious shakeup in the earbud world. Definitely one to watch if you spend a lot of time on calls. Here's a story that music fans across the country have been waiting years for. As The Verge is reporting, more than 30 U.S. states have formally asked a federal judge to order the breakup of Live Nation and its subsidiary Ticketmaster. This is massive. The states are asking Judge Arun Subramanian to force a sale of the ticketing giant and require Live Nation to also divest what the filing describes as a sufficient number of large amphitheaters. On top of that, they want to block Live Nation from using access to its remaining venues as leverage to push artists and promoters into using its own ticketing services, a practice critics have long called anti-competitive. If the judge agrees, This would be one of the most significant antitrust breakups in the modern entertainment industry. Live Nation has long faced accusations of using its dominance across ticketing, promotion, and venue ownership to squeeze out competition and keep prices high for consumers. This legal challenge could fundamentally reshape how Americans buy concert tickets, and maybe, just maybe, make the process a little less painful. Open source fans, this one's for you. Mozilla is working on a major visual overhaul for Firefox, and The Verge has the details on what they're calling Project Nova. According to The Verge's reporting, the redesign gives Firefox a fresh, rounded look. Think softer UI edges and a cleaner layout overall. But the really interesting part for privacy-conscious users is the upgraded settings section. Mozilla is redesigning it to make privacy controls much easier to find and actually use. And here's the headline feature that's getting a lot of attention in the open source community. There will be a single toggle switch that turns off all AI features in the browser, current ones, and any future ones they add. That's a pretty remarkable commitment for a major browser to make. Mozilla says Project Nova will begin rolling out to users later this year. It's a bold move that really leans into Firefox's identity as the privacy-first, community-driven alternative to Chrome. Whether it's enough to win back users who've drifted away over the years remains to be seen. But this is genuinely exciting news for Firefox faithful. Now here's a story that's going to divide music lovers. TechCrunch is reporting that Spotify and Universal Music Group have struck a landmark deal that will allow Spotify premium subscribers to create AI-generated covers and remixes of songs from Universal's massive catalog. This is a first-of-its-kind agreement between a major streaming platform and one of the world's biggest record labels. The key detail here is the revenue-sharing piece. TechCrunch notes that artists whose songs are used for these AI creations will receive a cut of the money generated. That's clearly an attempt to address one of the biggest criticisms of AI music tools, that they exploit artists without compensation. Whether fans think this is a cool creative feature or a step too far into AI-generated territory will probably depend on who you ask. Some will love the idea of remixing their favorite tracks with a few clicks. Others will see it as another encroachment on human artistry. Either way, this deal signals that the music industry is actively trying to find a structured framework for AI creativity rather than just fighting it in court. And that's a significant shift. Let's wrap up today's show with two big cybersecurity and privacy stories. First, have you ever felt like your phone was secretly listening to your conversations to serve you targeted ads? Well, Wired is reporting that the FTC has taken action against 3 companies that were selling exactly that kind of technology, marketing it as active listening software that could tap into people's phones to harvest data for advertisers. Sounds terrifying, right? Here's the twist. The FTC says the technology didn't actually work. According to Wired, regulators allege the so-called surveillance tool was basically just expensive email lists dressed up in scary-sounding language. The 3 companies will pay nearly $1 million in fines. Creepy marketing, non-existent product, and now a fine to match. And in our final story, TechCrunch is reporting a major cybersecurity win. Law enforcement has successfully shut down a VPN service that was allegedly being used by approximately 24 ransomware gangs to carry out cyber attacks. The service had promised its criminal users complete anonymity. But Europol was able to identify and notify those users, meaning the hackers now know that the authorities know who they are. That is a significant psychological and operational blow to ransomware operations worldwide. Great work by the international law enforcement community on that one. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Genai Tech News. We covered everything from rocket scrubs to robotaxi floods, AI earbuds to antitrust battles, and everything in between. If you found today's show valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'll see you in the next one.